This week on Full Credit to the Noise, brought to you by Parcel Protect. Oscar kisses the title goodbye. Courtney returns to number 18. And Tim Slade oils up over at Groves. Welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. You can find this podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FCTTN Podcast. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook at former_legend. You can find the bloke across from me on Twitter at AVL_motorsport. He's on Instagram at AVL.motorsport. He's a man who this week had a cool $5,000 on the Melbourne Cup winner. He started listing his occupation as influencer on those weird flight cards where they ask you what you do. And tonight he's wearing a Felipe Massa 2008 World Champion t-shirt. Welcome to Speed Cafe's Andrew van Leeuwen.
Thank you, Former. I was going to ask you what the weird flight card thing was, but I think I know what you mean, like the incoming passenger card.
Yeah, what's that about, by the way?
Oh, yeah, very, very bizarre. I remember when I first started my career, they always said don't put journalist on them because it can raise some sort of flags if you're going to other countries, not coming in
There you go.
to here. But again, I don't really know. No other countries really do it anymore. So it's like not really an issue. But yes, they are very strange. But now I know what you mean because when I did see it on the notes here, I was like, what sort of weird flight cards is this bloke talking about? But
and I get it. Should only be days before we announce Felipe Massa as the 2008 World Champion. Good news.
I'm sure that's exactly how it's
the right decision.
Yeah.
The right decision. Well, what happened this week? Can I just give a big... I know this is starting to become a KO love-in, but can I give a big shout-out to KO for giving us an alternate commentary team for the Formula One Grand Prix last night? We got Laura Winter, Alex Jakes, Lawrence Barretto, Jolyon Palmer, James Hinchcliffe, and David Coulthard, and weren't they a breath of fresh air? They were sensational.
I didn't hear it. I watched the replay today with just the normal Sky one on. Was it good?
It was good. It really was good. Very fair, very reasonable. They gave their opinions on the Oscar thing, which was extremely different to the ones that was on the Sky apparently, or the main channel. And no, it was good. It was. I found it to be quite enjoyable. And thank you, KO. $1 a day. You just keep giving.
Yep. There you go. That's good.
Proud supporters of Full Credit to the Noise. All right, let's go to the shift cut.
4, 3, 1.
And we will start with Formula One last night, and well, not last night, but sprint qualifying a couple of days ago. Lando stuck it on pole. Kimi Antonelli second. Ooh, nearly time to back him again, AVL. And title rivals Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen third and sixth, respectively. And then in the race, Lando won the sprint race, but the biggest news was that Oscar crashed out on lap 6 at turn 3. He just said he just dipped a wheel on the white line of the curb and around he went. He said it was a silly mistake or unfortunate mistake, so that's it. Replays show Lando Norris taking more inside curb at turn 3 previously, pretty much like Cam Waters did in that cool-down lap at Bathurst a few years ago, AVL, which caused water to be sprayed behind him, and then seconds later, Piastri spun after being caught out by the same wet curb, something the hall monitor George Russell jokingly suggested Norris did on purpose to prompt the mistake by his teammate, saying it was a little bit like a Mario Kart game. Behind Piastri, Hulkenberg and Franco Colapinto, surprise, surprise, followed his example with nearly identical spins. Hulkenberg escaped with minor repairs to his Sauber, while Colapinto's heavy crash in the Alpine brought out the red flag for barrier repairs. It was a bad start to the weekend if you're an Oscar Piastri fan, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're not sort of second behind the car in a qualifying session, behind the lead car from the same team in the qualifying session, it's always a bit of a worry. I mean, I think he was a very good chance to have got past Kimi Antonelli and finished second in that race. But, you know, it was, obviously he did put the car on the curb, but it does, those ground effect cars just suck. They're sucking up off the ground. And it was Lando that actually sort of pulled that water up onto the curb that he did run into. So not something, as George suggested, you could really do purposely, or you could, but the risk of driving on a wet curb when you're leading a race like that would be insane.
Lunacy.
to try and do that to try and pull some water up. So it was I guess a happy accident from Lando's position because it did give him a nice little points buffer in that race. But just yeah, just really bad luck from Oscar to sort of be in that position and to go off the road and just happen to hit that little bit of track where it was wet. And, it just kind of set the tone for the rest of his weekend, and for the third weekend in a row where he was already on the back foot a little bit, but had looked a little bit better compared to Lando, but suddenly he was just on the back foot again, losing more points. And then we obviously can talk about what happened in the main race.
Well, let's start with qualifying for the main race because Pole went to Lando yet again. He was pretty much untouchable all weekend. Kimi Antonelli was second, Charles Leclerc third, and Oscar was fourth. Probably the biggest surprise, though, was the shock Q1 elimination of Max Verstappen, who immediately wrote off his chances of winning the 2025 world title. He said, well, you can forget about that. In the race, Lando Norris was... took another significant step towards his maiden F1 championship, out-dueling his two title rivals to claim his seventh victory of the season, the same amount as Oscar now. He led home Kimi Antonelli and an absolutely low-level flying Max Verstappen, who produced a remarkable charge from the pit lane to finish third. That was unbelievable. Oscar Piastri recovered strongly to finish fifth after serving a mid-race 10-second penalty for a Turn 1 collision with Antonelli and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, following an early safety car restart. Before we go back onto that, let's just cover off on a couple of others. Liam Lawson held off Isaac Hadjar to finish seventh, which was a good run. Lewis Hamilton described his debut for a season at Ferrari as a nightmare following another disappointing weekend, which seen him crash into Carlos Sainz and then Franco Colapinto. He copped a 5-second penalty and then he had to retire anyway. Mate, we'll go back. Let's talk about Oscar getting the 10-second. Fair, unfair, what do you reckon?
No, I think it was very unfair, to be honest. I don't really think he did too much wrong in that position. Like, the accident really started with Kimi Antonelli just making a terrible restart, and Oscar was in a position to get into second place. And, we're talking about his weekend in very different terms if that all comes off, and he had to go for that move. I don't see how you could possibly, fighting for a world championship, not put that car there. There was space there. So the more I watch it, I'm just more and more baffled by it. To be honest, particularly when the wording from the stewards' outcome was that Oscar was wholly at fault for the crash. Because, what? Antonelli started with that crappy restart. Piastri had a right to be there. He had to be there. Yes, he locked up, and I guess that's what opened the door for the penalty, because other than that, he was actually well and truly in control of the car. It wasn't an overly ambitious move or anything like that. There was plenty of space for all three cars. Charles Leclerc left heaps of space for both of those cars. He sort of understood the position he was in and actually did really good risk management on the outside there, which is always a sketchy place to be for the exact reasons of what actually played out. But it was just one of those scenarios where, yes, Oscar locks up, but he locks up because there's a crash happening that he realised the crash is happening whatever he does, and he's just desperately then trying to get out of it. But the crash actually came from Kimi not leaving enough space, and it's interesting that was Leclerc's take. The guy who was worst affected by it, who doesn't have a dog in the World Championship fight or whatever, apart from, their own position in the constructors, who has sat back, looked at it, so objectively, he was obviously part of it, but sat back, looked at it and gone, I reckon the silver car in the middle actually caused this crash, not the guy on the inside. So... again, when the ruling for that penalty has to be that one driver was completely at fault, when something is such a clear racing incident, I'm not saying Kimi deserved any sort of massive penalty either, but it was just a racing incident. That was just a 3-1 scenario. And what makes it even more baffling for me is that there is a world championship battle going on, and race control should be trying to have as little influence over that as absolutely possible, because we've seen how that can play out and how nasty that can get. So to sit back and look at that incident and then slap an unnecessary penalty on one of the title contenders, literally do something that, it will change the course of the world championship, because it has to, because one of the driver that was penalised is deep into this very close battle for the title. I just don't understand. They should be looking for any way not to penalise Oscar in the context of the season. So to actually extend themselves to find a way to do it, I really just don't understand.
I feel like it was one of those incidents where, I hate to say it, but if you let basically luck take its course, that's your outcome. It could easily have been that Oscar wipes his front wing off and has to go in and change the wing and everything else, and has a shit day anyway. As it turned out, he cluttered wheels with with Kimi, who seemed to tighten the corner right up on him for reasons best known to himself.
Yep.
And he survived that as well with very minimal damage. But
Yeah, for sure.
poor old Charles Leclerc, who was, like you said, doing risk mitigation 101, three wide, thinking, I'll give these blokes plenty of room, somehow ends up with a tyre stripped off the wheel.
Yeah.
And you must, but in that regard, I just think, well, there were three players there, and you could argue all three of them played a part in that. You know,
Yeah.
Just as
well, no,
they
you're right.
said,
When it's three wide into there, everyone has taken the decision to
Correct.
go into what is a risky situation. But again, I don't think it was overly risky from Oscar. I think that probably that opportunity, like, he just had to try and grab that. And again, if he doesn't nip the brake, maybe it looks different. But when, I've had that before. I've had that this season in my car where, I had a penalty that was then rescinded because I sort of locked up and hit the back of someone. But the fact of the matter is, I'd actually claimed the corner, realised the crash was happening whether I liked it or not, and it wasn't my fault, but desperately trying to get out of it, then you do something like that. And it's like...
And that's exactly
it's
what
really
happened.
unfair. I just think it was a racing incident. I don't think anyone deserved a penalty for it. It was three guys who all made the decision to try and go around that corner three wide.
Yep.
Oscar doesn't lock up if the door doesn't get slammed on him. So he was in control of the car. Well, he wasn't going to wash wide and take them both out. He wasn't going that fast. He was well and truly in control of the car. So I just don't see how experienced stewards and race officials sit down, look at that incident and go, well, we better penalise this guy because it was 100% his fault.
Well, Martin Brundle seemed to think it was more than fair. He seemed to think it was a great decision.
On the fly, but you got to remember that the processes of actually making a decision for a penalty are totally different to trying to commentate a race or whatever. Because again, if you could flash that to someone and they could watch it and see Oscar lock that brake and you could make an immediate case. Because when I first saw it, I was a bit the same. I was like, oh no, what have you done here? But then when you actually look at it again, you go, hang on a minute, there's so many other factors here. And proper officialing of this stuff, certainly if you look at the way, I'm not overly familiar with the processes in Formula One, but if you look at how Craig Baird does it in Supercars, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of angles, and he'll look at every available angle before a decision will be made. And I just don't see how you can go through that process and sit there and say, yep, it was definitely Oscar Piastri's fault, 100%, no one else to blame. Let's hit him with a 10-second penalty.
Yep. Well, we leave Brazil. Norris is now on 390 points, 24 points ahead of Piastri, almost an entire Grand Prix win ahead of him. Verstappen's 341. You can basically say he's history unless something horrendous happens to Norris in the next two races. So it's really Norris's to lose now. I said it three or four Grand Prix ago. Piastri has not had form or speed like he did in the early part of the year, and it has just caught up with him. And this entire weekend was basically a microcosm of how his last sort of 6 or 8 weeks has gone. He was forever
the last
chasing.
Last three events, he hasn't been on Lando's level. It's just it's that simple, So it's Singapore he kind of was, and there was obviously that was circumstantial that he ended up behind him in the way that sort of first corner thing played out. But since then, he's just been beaten by him. Like there's no two ways about it. It's hard to make any other argument than the fact that Lando is lifted at the right time, and Oscar's come off the boil at exactly the wrong time for him. You know, so it is very difficult. The trick for Oscar now is actually just to get through the next 2 weekends. And remember, McLaren don't go great in Las Vegas, and Oscar seems to be struggling on the lower grip circuits, and that is exactly what Las Vegas is. He goes very well in Qatar, so that's an opportunity for him. But he just needs to make sure he's within 25 points coming out of Qatar, because this thing could be very easily over before. And I'm not saying it is over, but if he's not careful, then this thing's over before they even get to Abu Dhabi.
Oh, it will be.
And right now, it's just difficult to see him having that weekend where he just goes out and just beats the crap out of Lando, like he did so many times early in the season. So, I really hope I'm wrong on this. I'm not saying, but it's just difficult to get your head around it at the moment.
Yeah, I don't see it. Like, I know they say, form is temporary, but it's at the moment, it's telling is what it is. Form is telling, and his form is pretty rotten in my mind.
Yeah.
Franco Colapinto has confirmed that he's re-signed with Alpine for next year and immediately rewarded the faith of the team by binning the car in the sprint race. Meanwhile, the man he replaced, Aussie Jack Doohan, has been linked with a drive in the Super Formula Series in 2020.
Yeah. Well, at least you keep yourself in the single seaters and that sort of stuff. He's just got to remember to close the DRS flap going into turn one at Suzuka. That's all. Oh, I don't know. I assume so. Whatever. Just be a little careful. Be a little wary into turn one at Suzuka.
Lance Stroll has dismissed F1 exit rumours with a two-word answer in a press conference at Brazil. Stroll called claims he was ready to quit F1 as fake news, following remarks from former Aston Martin reserve driver Felipe Drugovich, who suggested Stroll had considered leaving in 23. At the time, Stroll brushed off similar speculation about his future. He said, "I had no plans on doing that. I'm not sure where that comes from. I guess he needed something to say. I have no plans on it." I love Lance Stroll. We need Lance Stroll in Formula One. There's things when there's nothing else to talk about. There's always going to be a Lance Stroll story somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right, we come back to Australia, and the news that's just hit the headlines in the last couple of hours is that Dick Johnson Racing is on the hunt for a new CEO, with the news that David Noble will step down at the end of the current season. The ex-North Melbourne Kangaroos AFL coach has spent 3 years leading the storied, very clever, Supercars squad, which is undergoing several key changes for 2026. Noble said he wants to explore new opportunities. Team owner Brett Ralph said the team will undertake a global search for a replacement. A global search. You know where they're going to find it, AVL? Down the hallway somewhere, like they always do.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what DJR does do from here, because obviously, signing David was the kind of big departure from fishing in the motorsport pool and actually, going outside of the sport, taking someone whose experience was in AFL and more general sort of sports administration. That team's certainly been through a lot the last couple of years. David's overseen a lot there. I don't have all the details on how or why this has happened. It's certainly been framed as the fact that he's opted to not continue beyond the end of this season. There has been a fair bit of chat that would be the case for quite a while, to be honest. So it's not something that I find overly surprising, just based on the kind of how the rumour mill has been going for at least the last probably 6, 7, 8 weeks. It'll be fascinating to see whether the team, does look for a like-for-like replacement, someone from, the wider sporting world or from the business world to come in and kind of go down that path, which we see some teams doing, or whether they, opt for a more motorsport-focused person to take over the sort of head day-to-day leadership of the team. So, again, I don't have any read right now on what direction they will go, but it will be interesting to see how they do play it.
If Dick Johnson Racing are listening, and I'm sure they are, probably go, if you're going to go for another AFL coach, maybe look for someone that's won more than 15% of his games. You need someone that's had a couple of W's next to his name, I would have thought.
Yeah, definitely bringing up North Melbourne with David Noble, who is an absolutely lovely guy. It has been really fun having him in the sport, but you don't bring up the Kangaroos when you're chatting with Nobes. That's the golden rule.
As we alluded to after the Bathurst episode, James Courtney has signed a deal with Team 18 to continue his career as an endurance driver, explaining in an interview with news.com.au that I couldn't go cold turkey. I would have ended up in another divorce. I can't afford another one. I could barely afford the first one. I noticed in the news.com.au story, AVL, that they put a capital T on cold turkey. You think they're suggesting James has had some plugs done over in Europe, or what's the story there?
That's I thought using that angle as the headline was a pretty long draw to bow, but you've taken it a little bit further there. That's no, I think he's reasonably well off in the hair department. What
about those chompers? They're pretty bright. You can go over there and get them chompers done.
Yeah, that's a Thailand job normally, isn't it? Isn't that?
No. I think Turkey is the port of call for all that stuff now.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. But no, this is obviously a great signing for Team 18. It does kind of beg the question, because Lee Holdsworth has still got a year on his deal to run, I believe. So it kind of begs the question as to what now for Harry Jones, who was considered a silly season prospect in terms of full-time drive, potentially even replacing David Reynolds at Team 18 not all that long ago. And now it's not even clear if he has a co-driving future at Team 18, although there is still the unanswered question of the Super Cheap Auto wildcard and who's going to drive that, because the first choice for that was Rylan Gray. He turned it down because he was hoping to find something else, and boy, has he found something else. So that's worked out pretty well for him. So We still don't quite know how that's going to play out, but yeah, it's quite interesting how this news has kind of shifted the storyline around Harry and his very real effort, and something he was happy to talk, publicly and openly about trying to get into supercars as a full timer.
If you were heading to Turkey, what would your first procedure be? I'm thinking an extension myself. What about you? What would you be?
I haven't given it much thought. I'm blessed with plenty of hair, so I don't need any.
I thought you were going to say something else, and I was going to say that'll do me. Meanwhile, Tim Slade is set to defect from Matt Stone Racing to Grove Racing next season amid a potential double co-driver change at the reigning Bathurst 1000 winning squad. Whether he will partner with Matt Payne or Kai Allen at Grove is unclear. The Penrite back team announced the departure of incumbent co-driver Dale Wood this week, while it's also likely to lose Garth Tander to TV commentary duties.
Yep, again, good business from Groves. A little unexpected, this one, given they generally look overseas when possible to fill those co-driver roles. There was a lot of talk about Kevin Estray. Matt Campbell's another name that's been linked there. So it's always tough with those guys, but when you've got, clashes, often these drivers aren't sure what their international program actually looks like and what they'll be doing. There's, obviously with Porsche's kind of scaling back that sports car stuff probably complicates it as well, because some of these guys that they would normally be looking at will be on the move. So I don't know if some changes in that world have affected the decision-making here, or whether they just saw that Slady was on the market and grabbed him, because he's obviously an absolutely A-grade choice as a co-driver. So yeah, it's for whatever reason, it's worked out really well for him.
Yeah. SCT Motorsport outcast Jackson Evans was confirmed alongside Ryan Wood at Walkinshaw Andretti United, replacing Jaden Ojeda, who is about to make his full-time season debut with Premier Racing. Premier announced that David Russell and Nash Morris will continue, while DJR is sticking with Todd Hazelwood and Tony D'Alberto, who will return to the team for his 11th year. Nick Percat is likely to go to Triple Eight if you listen to Jungle Rumours, which places a question mark over Jamie Whincup.
Well, I guess there are 3 Triple Eight cars now as well. So there could be space for Nick without Jamie needing to hang up the helmet. But, yeah, it is something that Jamie says every year, that he'll sit down and look at it and just make a decision on whether he thinks he's the best person to be in one of those cars. And obviously, there is this influx of available talent on the market, which probably makes that a slightly different internal conversation for him to have, as opposed to saying, well, there's some good options, but I still think I can do it, to saying, well, there are the Nick Percats and the Will Davisons out there right now who would just have so much match fitness. Maybe there is a better option. So that will be fascinating to see what Whincup decides to do.
Gut feel, I reckon he might just pull the pin somehow. And it would
I find it staggering that he can hold the workload of running that team. And remember, that workload goes up with taking on a third car and all that sort of stuff as well. I find it amazing he can do that and do so little other racing and then still perform so well, because the numbers, even though there was a couple of high-profile little wobbles along the way this year, the numbers still stack up pretty good for him in terms of how he performs. But I don't think he's someone who would ever not want to be performing at a certain level. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way, to be honest, in terms of what way he goes. But I just find it amazing that he can take on that level of workload and still do those big marquee races.
Tyre Power will switch its major backing from Erebus Motorsport to Matt Stone Racing for next year's Supercars Championship. The deal coincides with the move of driver Jacques Lebrock, who is a Tyre Power ambassador and has driven the retailer's colours during his time at Erebus. Tyre Power had been part of MSR and their primary sponsorship mix early in the 2024 season before moving to Erebus. An MSR announcement trumpeting the new deal notes that Tyre Power branding will feature prominently throughout the 2026 championship season. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it was always on the cards. I think that Jack obviously has a fantastic relationship with Tyre Power, and sort of as soon as the rumours started that he was going to depart Erebus and head to MSR, it was kind of considered a reasonably foregone conclusion that he'll race a Tyre Power car there.
Yeah, okay. Australian Production Car Enduro Championship organisers have expanded eligibility regulations to allow TCR and GT4 machinery among sweeping changes for 2026. There's going to be a 5-round calendar, and there's going to be some sporting regulations, which include opening a vehicle eligibility and introducing, a lap time bracket-based competition. Yeah, that leaves me a bit cold.
No, I don't like it. Well, look, I think Production Cars has to do something because outside of the 6 hour, they just haven't been able to get grids together. So,
yeah.
I think that it is, there are obviously so many cars available, and then you do have, your TCR cars and your GT4 cars, which would run on a semi-slick, I think, in doing production cars, not on a full slick like they would racing, in their own categories. But just opening it up and giving people somewhere to race, I think, is a positive move. And again, if you just look at everything outside the 6 hour, what Production Cars has been doing hasn't really been working. So I'm sort of, I think it's, you got to try something. So,
cool.
this is a go at trying to sort of, to get it back up and running, and to, there are enough production cars out there as well, because they all turn up in whatever month Easter falls in. So they're out there. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Hey, quick congratulations to Josh Waters, who's gone back-to-back to win his 5th Australian Superbike Championship at the Bend on a Ducati. Incredibly, he's won titles in 3 different decades, AVL, with a title in 2009, followed by successes in 2012, 17, 24, and now 25. Pretty mean sort of record, that.
Yeah.
We'll go to Kiwis and Aussies overseas. We'll start with the MotoGP. Aprilia's Marco Bezzecchi converted pole position into victory in the Grand Prix of Portugal, defeating Gresini rider Alex Marquez and factory KTM rider Pedro Acosta. Australia's Jack Miller had a top 10 pace, but faded in the battle over 10th to end up in 12th. Moto 2, Senna Agius finished 9th, and in Moto 3, Joel Kelso finished 7th in a pretty quiet weekend for Aussies overseas. All right, come back from a break to preview the Sandown Supercars round, or the Sandown 500, I believe they're going to call it. We'll be back soon.
Full credit to the noise.
If you're out there forklifting, bobcatting, jackhammering, backhoeing, trenching, digging, drilling, and persuading, you want to know that if anyone is thieving your stuff, that your insurance company will be timely with approving. So get on to Truck Assist, the insurance to keep on earning, with cover for the machines you're hauling and your work truck too. Go to truckassist.com.au, then get back to all that persuading. Limits and exclusions apply. Consider the PDS and TMD on the Truck Assist website.
Yes, welcome back. Now, this weekend, AVL, the Sandown Supercars, Sandown 500, which is a little bit misleading, but we'll get onto that.
It is a bit of a piss take, I got to say. It's not the Sandown 500. It shouldn't be called the Sandown 500.
So, just for those who don't know, there's 2 races, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, 81 laps each. They kick off at 3:20 p.m. on both days. Cars are on track for the first time on Friday at 1:30. Qualifying's on Saturday, starting at 11:50 and a top 10 shootout at 12:40. And then on Sunday, 11:20 with a top 10 shootout at 12:10. Weather. Well, possibly some rain, AVL, and that's what we want to see. That'll make this semi-finals thing even more intriguing. Supports for the weekend of the Super Utes, Porsche, Michelin, Sprint, the 86s, and the Touring Car Masters, and the defending champs are Will Brown and Scotty Pye. Righto, let's start with your predictions. Podium.
I think it's going to be a good weekend for Triple Eight. So I'm going to go, I reckon, Brock Feeney in first. I'll put Chaz Mostert between them because I just think he's in a good bit of form. And then Will Brown.
Okay. I've got Feeney, Payne, and Allen.
Oh,
which I think will
back
be
in the Fords to get it done on that big back straight.
Yep. Shootout and pole.
Feeney.
I mean, if you're not back at Feeney, you don't like money. What about your best roughie?
I've gone with Cooper Murray because I do think it'll be a pretty good weekend for people driving Camaros. And I don't know, just sort of looking through for a roughie there, I thought, you know what, let's chuck Cooper in there.
Yeah, I think Andre Heimgartner for the same reason. Mm-hmm. How many safety cars in the 2 races, AVL?
I'll go with 2 per race. There's some nice sand traps there. There's a good opportunity to get buried and have to be pulled out. So let's go for a couple per race.
If there's rain around, those wet sand traps seem to not catch the cars like they do if they're dry. So I'm going to say 1 a race, so 2 over the entire weekend. All right. If this is the question about the weekend, if this is the answer about the weekend, what's the question? The answer is 5,500. What's the question?
How many times we'll see that Todd Hazelwood shunt from 2017?
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
It gets rolled out a fair bit on Sandown weekend.
I've got how many spectators are going to ask who the co-drivers are in each car.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
If this is the question, what's the answer? The answer is 2 rounds to go. What's the question?
When is the Sandown 500 with 2 rounds to go? I don't know. What do you got?
Mine is how long are we subjected to Mark Scaife for? 2 rounds to go. What's your unlikely headline from the weekend?
People finally accept that the 500 is better at the bend than Sandown.
Wow. My unlikely headline is a limited driver say fair enough.
Yeah.
You just know something's going to happen. Someone's going to say they were stiffed. It's still great, and for those that are still bagging online, still talking about how rubbish the finals are, I disagree. I think this is...
Oh, yeah. I couldn't disagree
fantastic.
more. I think it's unreal. Like, it's just... Yeah. Who's going to go through, do you reckon? Let's really put our predictions
All
out
right.
there. Who gets through to Adelaide?
I think Brock.
Yep.
I think, and rightfully so. I think if he doesn't, there will be some leaning back towards the other way and saying semi-finals suck. So I'm going to say Brock. I'm going to say Chaz. I'm going to say Matty Payne. Mm-hmm. And if my prediction's right, Kai Allen.
Yeah. Yeah, you're really, with your podium prediction,
I've boxed myself into a corner there.
Swinging for the fences there on who's going through. I think both AAA cars will go through. I think it's just a track they're just going to go well at. So I reckon both AAA cars and, geez, having Chaz and Cam both in the mix going to Adelaide would be pretty spicy as well. So but yeah, Matty Payne's a pretty good shout as well.
I'll tell you what, Brownie wanted to make sure he qualifies a bit stronger than he has been, because this is not a track where you want to get stuck down below and into that first turn. Because
that's the risk for him. But yeah, surely if there's anywhere where they can turn it around, it's either going to be Simmons Plains or here. So I still think there's a big opportunity for both of those 888 cars to go through.
Good call. All right, we'll go to a break and we'll come back with some credit or shredits in the rear of grid.
Full credit to noise.
Winter could spell bad news for your vehicle's battery. Here are 3 maintenance tips from the battery gurus at R&J Batteries. 1. Avoid frequent short trips to keep your battery at a healthy state of charge. 2. Keep the battery terminals clean and corrosion-free. 3. Avoid running your accessories with the engine off for too long. If your battery is 3 years or older, it might be time to get it tested for free at your local R&J Batteries. R&J Batteries. Power like nothing else.
Yes, welcome back to Rear of Grid. Now, AVL, I've kept receipts, I'm not going to lie, in the Discord, because there's a few cheeky people who were calling me un-Australian every time I said to them that that Oscar was gone. One of them is Chapo, so don't worry, I won't miss him once it's all said and done.
Certainly today there was a fair bit of there was people jumping on the former bandwagon. Don't worry about that.
There's a few tails between legs. I'll give you the wide tip there. So so I'll tell you something. But new members rolling in every day too, and people that have been writing into the show and asking questions. That's been good too. So it's been fun. It's still fun. 6 credit or shred it. So I'm going to make a statement. You just tell me whether you agree with a credit or a shred it. If you disagree, we'll come back after we're done. Number 1, Lando Norris will go down as one of the least regarded F1 champions in history.
Shred it.
Credit. If you were a driver manager, you'd advise your client to take a testing role with one of the bigger teams rather than take the second seat at Alpine.
Shred it.
Credit. It's too early to start referring to Oscar Piastri as Oscar Criastri.
Credit.
Shred it. If you're any type of journalist, You cannot use the terms reveal or exclusive in an embargoed story that everyone else also has ready to go.
Credit.
Giving a fine for flipping the bird is the most out-of-date punishment in motorsport, which happened when Daniel Juncadella was fined 5,000 euros for a mid-race middle finger at Team WRT driver Augusto Farfus.
Credit.
Number 6, nothing to do with motorsport at all. Sam Constas will never play another test match.
Shred
Credit. All right. One of the least regarded F1 champions.
Yeah, I mean this with all due respect, but I think that if Oscar had kind of just limped home from the Zandvoort thing and won it, as great as that would be, and I really wish that's how it had played out, but I think there was probably more danger of that kind of, was this guy really the most deserving world champion than if Lando wins it? Because I think there was always going to be a sense that, Lando, as the slightly faster of the two, was going to have lost the title more than Oscar was going to have won it. But this comeback from him from Zandvoort is, as painful as it is for us to watch, it's pretty remarkable. Like the way he's turned that around and the way he's doing it at the moment. It's not like, again, it's not been handed to him. And I know that's obviously been the theme of the year and this and that, but he's really stepping up and grabbing it with both hands when it's, when it matters. So I think if he wins, and he really should from here, I think he'll be very well regarded for it. And I think also if Oscar can turn it around, particularly if he does it in a similar sort of fashion, it'll actually be better for how history kind of looks back on his title as well. So, I don't think it'll. I think the manner with which he's fought back will mean that it'll be a well-regarded title win.
I said credit. Now you're making me regret it because, like you say, I feel like the last 3 rounds, you just cannot argue that he's the better driver of the two, and that makes me sick in the mouth. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a painful thing. But like I say, even if Oscar had just kind of not had all these major issues that have cost him so many points, and he'd just gone into Abu Dhabi, needing to finish third to win the thing or whatever, I think there would have been more danger if we take off our own bias kind of glasses. I think to the wider world, there would have been more of like, okay, well, if the thing hadn't shit itself in Zandvoort or whatever, like there was always going to be a feel that was Lando's. It always felt like Lando's title. And to be honest, given his immense amount of additional experience, it always was Lando's title to lose. So there was always going to be a sense that he lost it as much as Oscar won it, whereas in this case, it will be a case of he's come back and won it. So that's sort of just changes. If I'm being completely impartial on it, that's how I view it.
Yeah, I'd love to go into, or love to ask someone close to the ground whether this is the Oscar sort of downturn in form has been a mental thing or has it been a mechanical thing? Because it's been stark how quickly he's fallen off.
I think it is. I think a lot of it is just circumstantial. Like these tracks are tracks that he did struggle on last year, and we saw him turn around a few of his weak circuits this year, but he just hasn't been able to do it consistently enough. So I don't think, obviously, like the mistakes in Baku would definitely, like they were driver errors. Like no doubt about it. But I think a lot of it is a case that like it's just the car's obviously not working for him. I'm sure if like they could switch on the grip, he'd be right there again. But just at these lower grip circuits, it's just completely turned on its head from where it was at the start of the year, where they changed the suspension on Lando's car to try and give him more front end feel. And at the events with lots of like high grip events, he just couldn't get a feel for the car, and Oscar was beating him. So I think it is just completely circumstantial. It just has happened to have come at a really bad time for Oscar because it's, the comeback has come at the point where you win or lose the championship.
Yeah. If you're a driver manager, you'd take a testing role over a second or the driving seat at race seat at Alpine.
Well, it would have to be a testing role where you had something locked into a race seat in the next year or something, because otherwise you just want to be in the race seat. Like it's the only way to prove yourself as a race car driver is to be in the race seat. So
you're going to prove
it's
much
obviously
in the
a
Alpine?
basket case of a team. And again, we can talk about poor Oscar Piastri, but how different could his life have been if they hadn't been able to get out of that Alpine contract? So we wouldn't even be worrying about whether he could win a championship or not.
You might be Formula E by now.
Yeah, like the heartbreak of not winning a world championship wouldn't be something like he'd happily take that. What, I finished second in the world championship, you absolute beauty. So yeah, that's definitely, you would avoid it if you can, but you still always want to be in the race seat if you're trying to break into Formula One.
So we can't call Oscar Piastri.
Nah, that's a little bit mean. Apparently, he'd never torn a corner off a car until Baku. Like properly, like wrecked a car until Baku, but he's making up for lost time. It's a pretty spectacular race. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, using the terms reveal or exclusive in an embargoed story, as someone did during the week, one of your fellow brethren.
Yeah, it's
a bit rich.
If you've negotiated an exclusive on an embargoed release to be able to go early with it, with whoever's setting it out, then that is something that happens, and then you can do it. But yes, if you're just running an embargoed release at the same time as everyone else, it's not an exclusive.
Flipping the bird is giving a punishment for that as an out-of-date punishment, not just in motorsport, in sport in general. Are we really that concerned about flipping the bird in 2025?
Yeah, it seems very unnecessary to fine anyone for it, unless the context is really aggressive. You know, like there would be circumstances where you could make the argument, but not in the heat of a car race.
That's an angry flip of the bird you're talking about there. I don't think I've ever been victim of one of those. Mm-hmm. Sam Constas will never play another test match.
I hope he finds some middle ground and some form. And by middle ground, I mean like some actual just proper like cricket shots, and finds a way back in. I mean, that debut, that spell at the MCG was one of the most amazing bits of cricket that I've
it was celebrated beyond its worth, to be honest.
But it'd be a shame to lose that X factor for good. But obviously, you can't. Again, if he like the amount of times he almost got out early on in that innings, it could have been the whole storyline could have been totally different. But he seems like a pretty cool dude. I hope they do. He can find the right form and find a way back in.
Well, you've got to park the ramp shot, for God's sake, and just play some normal, decent cricket shots, because that's what he's almost getting just... And I think lots of bowlers now have figured him out, and that's what happens, right? If you...
he obviously put himself under a spectacular amount of pressure with that debut as well, because like that becomes the expectation, right? Oh, this guy's going to like score a heap of runs in this really spectacular fashion, and it's going to be like that all the time. And that's just not how cricket works, and it's definitely not how Test cricket works.
And don't forget, you can tune into Full Credit to the Leg Buyers later on this year. So, I didn't do a letter of the week, AVL. I'm not going to lie, I forgot to look. Had a bit going on the last couple of weeks, as you probably know.
That's all
right. But we'll end it there. That'll about do us for this episode of Full Credit to the Noise. Don't forget, you can find the show on all the socials at FCTTN Podcast. You can read AVL's excellent work over there at speakcafe.com, where they do break all the big motorsport news first, and they don't use words like exclusive or reveal if everyone else has got the same story. Mm-hmm. Until next week, I've been former legend. He's been AVL. This has been Full Credit to the Noise, and we'll see you at Malala.
See you there.
Full Credit to the Noise.